Good morning, Graham.
Hello.
I've just finished reading The Age of Innocence by Edith Wharton.
Have you then?
Yes, but I have a few questions.
Great. Maybe I can help.
I was wondering what literary period the novel comes from.
I'm not sure I know what you mean.
You know, Romanticism, Realism, Modernism, Postmodernism, etc.
Oh, yes, I see. Well, allow me to start with some background information. Edith Wharton was a turn-of-the-century American writer. She was also the first woman to receive the Pulitzer Prize. In fact, it was the Age of Innocence novel that won her said honor. She was also an active feminist. Born in New York in 1862, into a well-to-do family, she writes mostly about the richer class of society. She married unhappily and eventually got a divorce.
Very interesting. That sounds a lot like Ellen Olenska from the novel.
It does indeed. But you asked about the literary period. Though a bit after her time, there is no doubt that Wharton was a realist. This novel is no different as it displays all the characteristics of realism.
What are the characteristics of realism?
Realism closely resembles reality. Character is more important than action and plot. Complex ethical choices are often the subject. Characters appear in their real complexity of temperament and motive. Class is important. Events will usually be plausible. Diction is natural vernacular, not heightened or poetic. Objectivity in presentation becomes increasingly important.
Oh, I see. That does seem to fit. Am I wrong to think that this novel has something to do with the American dream?
No, not at all. It can certainly be viewed that way.
In the novel, it seems that the American dream of the high society of New York is to be rich without financial problems, marry against your wish but happily, be successful in society life and never do anything out of form that might draw negative attention to you or your family.
Quite true. Their American dream is a bit different than the classic one, which is more about pulling yourself up by your own bootlaces, but the American dream in this novel is divergent because members of New York society are born into old money and are successful and they don't need to work for economic success. The main desire is to fight against the unorthodox. There is a certain manner in which people do things and have done things for a while, and to change that consistency is social suicide.
I agree. The way Wharton writes is very captivating, isn't it?
Ah, yes, it is. Her diction is pleasantly florid and even includes phrases from other languages, such as French and Latin. But that was normal of that time and Edith Wharton was well educated. The syntax in the novel flows nicely and is full of complex sentences. Her writing is very conversational.
I adore Wharton's word choice, but I did have to look up a few words and phrases.
Such as what?
Such as immer, which means to enclose within walls. Acrid, meaning sharp or biting to the taste or smell. Amalgam, meaning a mixture or combination. Depose, meaning to remove from office or position. Venerable, which means commanding respect because of great age or impressive dignity. Aplomb, meaning imperturbable self-possession, poise or assurance. Denouement, which means the final resolution of the intricacies of a plot. Esprit de corps, which means a sense of unity and of common interests and responsibilities. Unpuissant, meaning an unsociable person. And so on. It was very interesting learning so much new vocabulary. The characters are marvelous too. I love Newland Archer. He's so sentimental and conflicted, it's adorable. He is sick of habit and in love with Ellen Olenska, but they're both married. He wants to defy all social convention, but he also can completely ignore the values that are a part of him and the culture of the upper crust of New York. He can't escape the knowledge that destroying his own life and shaming his family is just not done. Especially not with a woman whose life is already in shambles because she's left her brute of a husband. Newland even shows signs of some feminist ideas, although, once he's married those feelings seem to lose their meaning to him. All Newland wants to do is help Ellen because he loves her, but they can't be together. It's really romantic, but sad at the same time.
Indeed. Ellen Olenska is a very complex character, even more so than Newland Archer. Ellen is mysterious, but can also hold her own in a world where women don't often fend for themselves. Because of this, she is frowned upon in New York society, even though she returned to New York from Europe in order to feel at home and accepted by her own people. Her family members and friends who don't like her say it's because she makes bad choices and is too European and strange, but in reality they don't like her because she forms her own opinions and can actually think for herself.
May is an important character, but very static. The only change she makes throughout the novel is to change from actually trying to better herself while engaged to Archer, to not really caring to be different anymore once they're securely bonded to one another through matrimony.
Yes, poor May. In true realist form, every character is flawed. Newland Archer is a good man, but the whole premise of his conflict is that he essentially wants to cheat on his wife because he's in love with someone else. Ellen Olenska's flaws are made clear by the eyes of society. She left her husband, definitely not something that a wife should do. She brought shame to her family and then refused to return to her awful husband when he asked nicely. Also, she's too bohemian and has a brain. Terrible, really. May is flawed because she has no wish to improve her situation. She's perfectly happy with normal, boring habit, and she feels no need to gain knowledge of the world around her. She is content in her own little sheltered world. Everyone else in the novel is mostly the same. They are shocked when people do unconventional things, and they all try harder than anything to be as normal as possible all the time.
It's heartbreaking that Ellen and Newland both want the same thing, but Newland is afraid of society, and also afraid of letting Ellen go. While Ellen doesn't want to leave Newland or go back to her husband, but also doesn't want to hurt any of the New Yorkers who have been so nice to her.
Did you take note of the themes, motifs and symbols in the novel?
I did notice that May seems to symbolize old New York. She is always concerned with the right thing to do, and is uninclined to change her ways or the ways of society. She is perfectly content living in their small, habitual world.
Very true indeed. A common theme in the novel is appearance versus reality. What people say and do is very different from what they mean. Often in the novel, Archer will point out inconsistencies between what someone has done and what that person really means by it. Society people do things because they are considered the right thing to do. That does not necessarily mean that what they feel backs up what they do.
Another very prominent theme seems to be man versus society. Ellen and Newland are always fighting the ideals that have been developed by society and never really each other.
I'm glad that you were able to see that.
Thank you very much for having this discussion with me and helping me see exactly what I learned from reading this captivating novel.
You're very welcome. Farewell for now.
Goodbye.